Welcome, Dads. I'm Russell Rainey, Executive Director of Adventures for Life, the organization behind this Journey to Manhood weekend you're about to experience. A number of years ago, Robert Lewis and I teamed up together to host week-long manhood adventures for dads and sons in beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming. What we saw happen in those adventures thrilled us. Not only were great memories made, but for many dads and sons, this experience of connecting together and exploring manhood was life-changing. Now, Robert and I have taken the best of what we learned in Jackson Hole and put it into a 3-day weekend that can be replicated and enjoyed almost anywhere by fathers and sons just like you. One key we found that makes for a great father and son experience is preparation. Specifically, dad preparation. The more you, as dad, can know about what's ahead in this upcoming Journey to Manhood weekend and are made comfortable and equipped to engage it, the better and more impactful this 3-day experience will be for you and your son. Dads regularly report back to us how much this Dad's Prep Time session helped them win big with their son over the weekend. So dads, get ready, because Robert is about to make you ready for this special weekend ahead.
Guys, welcome. Welcome to Dad's Prep Time. And as the name implies, this is an orientation session designed to help you as dads feel comfortable and ready for this 3-day Journey to Manhood adventure that you're about to take with your son. So let me just say again, welcome, welcome. And before I go even any further, let me just say how much I appreciate the fact that you dads are taking the time to give your sons this special experience. In fact, if I could come out there right now in the audience, I'd give each one of you a big high five, because I sincerely believe that you're about to create some lifelong memories with your son with this weekend, as well as, and maybe even more importantly, inspire some significant manhood vision in your boy. So dads, it's just great to have you here. Now, as I said, this is an orientation session. It's designed to help you feel comfortable with your Journey to Manhood weekend. So if you would, turn to the Dad Prep Time outline that's in the very back of your manual. Okay, turn there. And let's begin our session together. Now, first of all, I want you to notice the 3 objectives that we have for this session. First, we want to preview your upcoming Journey to Manhood weekend. First, by walking you through the weekend schedule overall, kind of give you a big picture, and then by touching on some of the key events that will take place during the weekend and when. Second, we want to explain and make you comfortable with some of the exciting personal moments that you are going to have with your son. And let me just say right now, there are going to be five special moments that you're going to have with your son. 5 key moments that have the power to take the weekend that you're about to go on from good to great. And I really do mean great. But to make that happen, we want to help you in this session to be fully ready when these moments come, so you'll feel comfortable into stepping into them with your son. Because if you're not prepared, some of these can take you off guard. So we want you to feel really relaxed and ready to engage your son on this weekend in those 5 special moments. And I'll explain those moments a little later on in this session. And then third and finally, we want to prepare and equip you as a dad with resources for helping your son after this weekend pursue a healthy, life-giving manhood in the years to come. So those are the 3 objectives for this session together. First, kind of a big picture overview of the weekend that you're about to go on. Then we want to go into detail around the 5 special encounters that you're going to have with your son. And then we want to pack you up with some resources that after the weekend is over, you can use to continue to help your son grow into a man. Now, I have no doubt at all that every one of you right now want to be a good dad. If you didn't want to be a good dad, you wouldn't be with me here today. But here's what I've observed in watching dads over the years. Being a good dad takes more than good effort. You know, lots of dads today try hard. They really do. They try hard. I know a lot of those dads. I watch those dads. They work hard at trying to engage their son and love their son. But unfortunately, many times these good efforts that these dads give with their son fail to deliver long-term good results. And the question is, why? Why does that happen? Here's what I want you to know. Because good effort isn't always smart effort. You can try hard as a dad and still miss delivering to your son some of life's most important ingredients, like a clear vision of what manhood is all about and why it's so critical, about how manhood is lived out practically in the everyday of life with friends, with girls, in work, and with God. You can miss out on giving what your son most wants from you as a dad, and that is to connect with your heart and give your heart to him, which he so wants, and how to hear his own heart. You can miss out on making special memories with your son that will last for a lifetime. And you can miss out on how to spiritually bless your sons. You know, as I've watched that, a lot of dads try hard. They flail away in the dark, sometimes in the fog, trying to make a difference with their son, but they still miss it. Here's why. Here's the key principle. Better than a good dad with good effort is the smart dad with good effort. So what is the smart dad? Well, let me define him in 4 specific ways. Here's the first. First, the smart dad is intentional. He has a plan for raising his son, and he works that plan. Now, guys, let's just stop for a moment. In the middle of your manual is a smart dad foldout. Why don't you turn there just for a moment, and let's just sample that. This is just a sample smart dad plan. And when you get there, you're going to see the 4 critical things that a smart dad knows his son needs. And they're listed there on the left-hand side of the column. For instance, he knows his son needs to see certain things. He needs to see dad's character and his spiritual life. He needs to see dad loving mom. He needs to receive affirmation and encouragement. He needs to see or receive special manhood instruction. And of course, he needs to receive Jesus in his life. He needs to experience certain things, some special one-on-one memory-making times with just you as a dad. And he needs manhood ceremonies. And then lastly, he needs to hear these words: I love you, I'm proud of you, and I admire in you. And then you can explain what those are. He needs to hear that over and over, especially in the critical teenage years. Now notice on that fold-out across the page, you'll see the years that these things are marked where these things I just mentioned are especially important to your son. And you'll also notice where there are some special opportunities where you can engage your son in the years that he needs to hear certain instruction or have certain experiences with you. That's just a sample dad plan. And to show you how it works, let's just take something simple on the smart dad plan, and that's the manhood ceremonies. Find that down under experience, and then look across the page, and you'll notice we've listed 4 manhood ceremonies that could help you mark your son's march to manhood. They occur at age 13. You see it there? Then it occurs at 16, at 18, and then at 21. At 13, you need to introduce your son to a real clear vision of what it means to be a man. And as I said, the good news is that's what we're going to do on our weekend together. We're going to introduce your son to a very clear definition of manhood that he can live under and follow. Secondly, when he turns 16, it's good to mark that moment of his march to manhood by getting some other dads or key friends in his life to meet with him when he turns 16, gets his driver's license, and you kind of celebrate his growth to manhood. That's that ceremony. And you speak into his life things that you admire in him that he's growing up into, some abilities or characteristics that you notice in him. Then when he turns 18, he's leaving home, and that's a time for another great moment, manhood moment, where you bring the family together. He's about to leave home to go off to college or into the workforce. And so you get everybody there and you pray over him and talk to him and encourage him to keep living as a man. That's a special moment, a ceremony. And then finally at 21, maybe when he finishes college, you're bringing back with his friends and his family, and you have a great dinner or ceremony, and you just recognize him that now he's the man you've been leading him towards all those years. Let me tell you, those ceremonies, guys, are powerful. And the smart dad knows that. And the smart dad plans for that. And then the smart dad takes the time to pull those off. Now, turn the page from that fold out, and immediately on the next page, you're going to notice some other things. And that's resources for building strong sons. Now, what's listed there on the next few pages are just resources that could help you. Some of the best resources, by the way, that are out there that could help you implement this plan that we just briefly looked at. Now, you'll have more time later this week to read through all that, to look over the plan, and I would encourage you to do that. But here's all I want you to know right now. Here's the point. The point of looking at this fold out briefly and the resources is just simply to illustrate the fact that smart fathering, let's look guys, smart fathering doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. A smart dad has a plan to make it happen, and then he works that plan while his son lives under him. You see, a smart dad, he's intentional. Secondly, the smart dad is instructional. He teaches his son important life skills. Like we saw in the sample plan, he doesn't let his son just guess about his manhood. He doesn't let his son guess about life skills or work skills. He doesn't let him guess about girls or God. Over the time that your son is under your charge, there are critical moments and resources available for those moments for you to instruct your son. And you can use other dads to do it. For instance, with girls, you can get some other dads and sons together and just study about what it means to interact with the opposite sex. You can get some other dads to join together to have some experiences to teach your son certain life skills or work skills. You can have a Bible study to teach him how to encounter God, but you don't just leave that up to others or the church. You as a dad think through these critical things that they need to develop, and then you instruct him using the resources we've provided or that you found, or some other dads to get together to interact so that your son is filled with wisdom from the outside to help him become a man. The important thing is this: you don't leave these skills to chance. You take the time to build these skills into him. And that's because the smart dad, he's instructional. Thirdly, the smart dad is experiential. He makes special memories with his son. Now, you don't need to turn there, but back on your smart dad fold out, it suggests that you have some special one-on-one experiences with your son, just you and him, between the ages of 13 and 18. And why is this so important? Because sociologists and psychologists have told us that when a dad makes great experiential memories with his son, these experiences live in him for a lifetime. They give him, in a sense, a certain confidence and settledness about his life by being with dad that he can take with him the rest of his life. Memories are foundational for a good adulthood. I'll never forget walking into a very successful businessman's office. The guy had been real successful here in our city, had won all kinds of awards for his business expertise and entrepreneurism. And when I went in, he had this big desk, and behind his desk, this big credenza, but on his credenza was just a small picture in a metal frame. And I went over and looked at that, and I said, "What is this?" And he turned and looked at it, and he said, "That was me duck hunting with my dad years ago when I was about 14. And I looked at it, and then behind me, I heard him say, "It was the greatest moment of my life." That moment, that one moment of just being with Dad as a young man was so powerful that now as a, I guess, 55-year-old man, that's what he was at the time, here in his office, there in his credenza was that small framed picture just to remind him of that encounter that meant so much to making him feel good as a young boy and then ultimately as a man. Now, I got some good news about our weekend. I think when we go on this weekend, I think you have the opportunity to make one of those great memories with your son. In fact, it might be a never to be forgotten memory with your son when we go off on this weekend together. But the point I want to make now is about the smart dad, and that is the smart dad. The smart dad. He's one who's experiential. And then lastly, the smart dad is emotional. He shares his heart with his son and he blesses him. Guys, the greatest pain I've seen in men's lives is the pain of never having felt Dad's heart. Some of the most successful dads who engage their son in trial may give him everything except his heart. And yet that's what a son most wants from his dad. I get the opportunity to go into prisons from time to time, and prisons are filled with all kinds of men who missed that essential. And they'll come up to me, and sometimes with tears in their eyes or with anger in their voice, they'll say, I never heard my dad look me in the eye and say, I love you, son. I never heard him say, I'm proud of you. I never heard my dad ever tell me what I was good at or what he liked in me. And you can just feel the angst in their soul that they missed something critical in their development. And because they missed it, life got skewed for them and went dysfunctional. Heart language is critical to a son. It's the language a son most wants and is desperate for from his dad. And those sons who get that heart language and get that blessing, let me tell you, they're forever strengthened by it. They'll carry it with them the rest of their life, and if they miss it, they'll carry an angry vacuum with themselves the rest of their life. Now, as I said earlier, you will have 5 opportunities on this weekend to share your heart with your son. I'm going to describe each of those in more detail in a moment. But what's important for you to hear right now is the smart dad, the really smart dad. He will share his heart with his son and bless him. So guys, that's the smart dad. Let me just say it again. The smart dad is intentional. The smart dad is instructional. The smart dad is experiential. And the smart dad is emotional. That's the kind of dad you want to be. Now, let's start with the weekend schedule that's in the front of your manual. So turn back to the very front of your manual, and let's just overview real quickly the weekend that you're about to experience. You'll notice when you turn there, it's fairly straightforward. Here's the way the weekend falls out. You'll have a weekend leader who'll invite you to this weekend. You'll normally arrive there between 5 and 5:30 to whatever destination you're going. And you'll get settled with your son, and then you'll have dinner around 6 o'clock. And then at the end of that dinner, your weekend leader will ask at least 5 of the dads to introduce their sons. And we'll talk about that father-son introduction that kind of sets the tone of the weekend here in a moment. But that's how the weekend starts, with a dinner and then father-son introductions. And then after dinner, we'll gather for the first of 3 messages. If you'll notice there, the first message that I'll give will be defining your manhood. And we'll start right at the beginning, giving your son kind of a big picture view of what it means to be a man and spell it out practically so he can sink his teeth into it. And then after the message, we'll break into what we call man-to-man small group discussion. And the discussion questions will be at the end of each of the messages. So you'll be able to break into a small group, and you'll have the questions right there for you where you can interact with your son over what you just heard in that video message. And when that's finished, then you'll take a break. You'll have some snacks. You'll play maybe some card games. You'll go outside, shoot some fireworks, Or as one group did, they played dodgeball between the dads and the sons till they wore each other out. And then as the evening winds to a close, you'll finish up and then go to bed, and that's Friday night. The next morning, Saturday, it's all about fun, and I want to emphasize fun. And the fun will be either a activity or a group of activities that your leader who invited you to this weekend has set up for you. And so you may go on and just do one thing. You may go duck hunting or deer hunting. Maybe you go golfing. Or maybe it's a large group of fathers and sons and you go to a church camp, a retreat center, and you play a variety of games. But it's all day Saturday. And then at the end of that fun day, you'll go to dinner that night and then follow the same schedule to finish up Saturday night that you did on Friday night. And that's dinner, a manhood message, small group man-to-man discussion, then some unwind time where you just have some fun playing some games and having some snacks, and then you go to bed. Then we come to Sunday. And Sunday, of course, is a morning schedule only. Immediately after breakfast, you'll gather for the final manhood message. That final manhood message is your smart moves to manhood, and where I share a vision of how you as a dad with your son can continue after the retreat to help him grow as a man. Then at the conclusion of the message, rather than break into small groups, you're going to do something a little different, and that is you as a dad with your son are going to go away alone for an hour and have some FaceTime together, just you and your son. You will be given cards. Your son will be given a card with questions to ask you, and you will be given a card with questions to ask your son. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But one thing we found, I want you just to make note of here, that hour, that private father-son time is one of the most powerful moments of the whole weekend. By the time you get to that, boy, you're at a heart level, and there'll be some incredible things exchanged in that moment that you can bless your son with, and he can bless you with. After the private time is concluded, we'll break, have a time where we get packed up, kind of get ready to leave, and then we'll come back together as a large group, and we'll have a father-son commitment ceremony where we'll commit ourselves to being better dads and better men, and then your leader will dismiss you from home. But here's what I hope. When he dismisses you from home and you get in your car with your son and you're driving away from whatever site you've been at, in your head you'll be saying, man, I'm glad I did this. Man, I'm glad I did this. This was awesome with my son. And hopefully he'll be saying the same thing to you. Okay, there you have it. A brief overview of the 3 days to kind of get you oriented for the weekend ahead. Now I want you to turn back to the dad prep time outline just for a moment. And let's finish up by me describing for you, as I promised, the five special father-son moments that you're going to have with your son. And I want to kind of describe them in detail in advance to make you comfortable with them so you can make the most out of them. By the way, I just want to say again, these are the difference makers of the weekend. So look under the special father-son moments, and let's do the first one. It's called Father and Son Introductions. And I mentioned that happens on Friday night at the end of dinner. And at the end of dinner, your leader is going to stand up and ask 5 of the dads to introduce their sons to the group publicly. Now, you may already know each other, but we're still going to go through this exercise because what you want to do is begin to speak into your son's heart. And the way you're going to do that, because this is really important, is you're going to take about 3 or 4 minutes before the group and introduce your son. And what you're going to do is you're going to stand up, you're going to state who you are, you might just say what you do, and then you're going to put your hand on your son's shoulder and you're going to say, I'd like to introduce you to my son. And then you're going to state his full name. That's very important. So you're going to say, I want to introduce you to William Taylor Thompson III. Maybe it's a family name. Or in my case, if I were introducing my son, I want to introduce you to Robert Garrett Lewis. And your son's going to be standing there, you're touching him, he's looking at the thing, and then you're going to say this. Let me tell you why my mom and I named our son this name. And like I said, if it's a family name, maybe you tell a little story about what that family name means that your son carries. If it's a special name you chose because of something that you experienced that you wanted your son to carry with him, then you'll share that. In my case, I call my son Robert Garrett Lewis, or I call him Garrett. And the reason we chose the name Garrett is because of a high school coach who changed my life. I mean, when I was growing up, my mom and dad had a troubled marriage. I was kind of wandering around, and a coach noticed me, kind of pulled me aside, kind of gave me a little extra attention, called me out, called me up, cheered me on, and it changed my life. And I'll never forget when I was in the birthing room with my wife and the doctor said it was a boy, the first thought that came to my mind, I'm going to call him Garrett. I'm going to call him Garrett, after the man who influenced me the most in a positive way. So you'll do something like that in 3 or 4 minutes. You'll just tell a story. This is my son's name. You'll tell a little bit about why he was named that way. And then, because you're prepared, you're going to say, one thing I love about my son is, and you're going to state something very specific that you really love about your son. And you got your hand on his shoulder, remember? And he's standing there, and I've been to these retreats. He's going to start standing a little taller. You've already bragged on him a little bit. Now you're going to brag on what you love about him. One thing that you love about him. And tell it to the whole group. And then when you're finished, you just kind of give him a hug and sit down. Now let me tell you, that may sound like a little thing here, but on Friday night, after you've done that and some other dads do that, you begin to feel hearts touching one another. Sons begin to feel better about themselves because they hear dads bragging on them. And that sets the tone for the whole weekend. So guys, I want to note this. This is very important right from the very beginning. Here's the second special dad and son moment. It's what we call man-to-man discussion times. On Friday and Saturday night after I give the message, you're going to break into a small group with your son, some dads and sons in a small group, and you're going to have some discussion questions where you're going to process the message that you've just heard. Actually, I've given some samples of the questions from the first message. So we're talking about defining your manhood, and the questions that will be in your outline will be things like, what impacted you the most in this session? What aspect of the manhood definition was most challenging to you? What aspect is most exciting? Those will be some of the questions as you sit down. One of the guys in the small group will read those questions. You'll begin to interact. But here's what's really important in that first man-to-man discussion time. You, Dad, need to take the lead. When the question is asked, you as a dad need to speak up, share what you're feeling about that message. You don't want to pontificate. You want to share out of your heart. You want to be transparent. You want to be honest. If something I said in that message made you uncomfortable, you say, one of the things Robert said in that message on manhood really made me uncomfortable because I'm not good at that. Those sons need to hear that. They'll start processing that. They'll hear men talking like men. And you as a dad need to take the lead in that and be a part of generating those discussions. If you do that, what we've learned is those discussions become real lively. In fact, a lot of times we have to stop them because they get real intense. As you share, it's going to be more easy for your son to share. And if your son, for whatever reason, is a little reluctant in sharing, then what you can do is just encourage him by just gently asking him this question. Bob, what do you think? Just ask him. If he says anything, you might just compliment him because you're trying to call him out to participate in the discussion. But these man-to-man discussion times can be incredibly rich if you'll take a lead by being honest. You got to be honest and transparent. Okay, that's the second father-son heart-to-heart moment. A third special moment is the father and son fun times. And this takes place in 2 places, as I've already mentioned. First, on Friday and Saturday night after the messages, when we do some unwind time, we just break to games of all kinds, some snacks. You just have fun. You may play Chase in the Dark. I don't know. But it's just a time just to have a good time right after the messages until you go to bed. And you want to participate in that. I mean, when I was watching the dads and sons play dodgeball on the last retreat, till about 11 o'clock, man, that was so fun to watch. They really got into it. And you want to make this a fun time. The next day, remember, all day Saturday is a fun day around either a specific activity like hunting or fishing or a variety of activities that your leader has chosen. So that's why this whole weekend is going to be a mixture of fun and vision. But if you'll notice in your outline, I've got 2 cautions that we've put there for you to adhere to on these fun times. Here's the first. Dad, keep the fun times fun, okay? Resist coaching your son. If he's out there playing with some other kids, don't be calling him out or trying to correct him or coach him or criticize him for maybe not working hard enough at that dodgeball game or he made a mistake in hunting or whatever. Resist coaching or critiquing him. And then secondly, be an encourager through the whole day. Just set the dial of your brain that all the time we're doing activities, I'm going to just keep encouraging my son, whether he does good, bad, or whatever. I'm going to make smiles and laughter my goal for the weekend. Okay? That's how you're touching hearts. You want your son coming back from that retreat going, boy, I had a great time with Dad. Okay? Then a fourth special moment is the private father and son time on Sunday morning. This has the potential for being one of the most powerful moments of the weekend. And because it's so intimate, to help you get ready for it, we're going to give you a little sneak preview. Remember I told you that when you go off on that private son time, you're going to be given a card with questions on it to ask your son, and your son's going to be given a card that he's going to ask you questions, and he'll start first. And in order to get you ready, he won't know this, but you're already ready because you've got the questions. The questions are listed there in your prep time outline. So for instance, you're going to be off with your son at this moment, and I want you to notice the questions because they go to the heart. He's going to ask you the first question that says, Dad, tell me about growing up under your dad. What did he do that you liked, and what do you wish he had done for you? Now, this is not a time, if you had a tough dad, to go deep into criticizing him, but here's what I want you to know. We found that most sons have never heard their dad tell the story of what it was like being a son growing up under their dad. Where they tell maybe a special moment that they had with their dad that they always cherish, or that they say, you know, my dad worked hard, I wish we'd have done more of those. But again, this is a time for honesty and transparency where you just tell the story briefly of what it was like growing up under your dad. So your son will know that forever. Secondly, he'll say, Dad, what have been some of your happiest moments? Now you want to speak out of your heart. Pick 1 or 2 of the best moments, and not just tell him the moment, tell him why that made you so happy. And then he'll say, Dad, what does God mean to you? And what part does he play in your life? This is a chance to tell you how you encounter God. And let me tell you, if you've got some questions with God, if you said, you know, son, I've struggled in that, that's what you need to say. This is an honest moment of dads and sons connecting together. Just be honest and transparent in your answers. And by the way, since we're doing a sneak preview, look in your outline because here are the questions you're going to ask your son. What do you like about our family, and what would you like to change? You're going to ask your son that. What have been the happiest moments in your life? And how can I be a better dad to you? And be specific. And by the way, when you ask those questions, your role is just to listen and to try to understand, not react if he says something you don't like. Now, we found that you can ask those questions back and forth in about 45 minutes. It might go a little longer, but there'll be a little time at the end. And we found that little time at the end, and I want you to star this in your outline. You might want to use that because right now there's going to be a lot of comfort with one another at a heart level. You might use that moment where you feel like you want to ask your son forgiveness for something. Now, a lot of dads don't need to do this, but there may be some dads, because of what's transpired on the weekend, you feel like this is a healthy moment where you can look at your son and ask him forgiveness for something you've done or not done in this moment. And if that's you, here's just a little coaching. If you want to do that, take that moment and say, son, will you forgive me for, and then state it specifically and don't make any excuses. Don't add anything to it. Just ask him, because here's what I want you to know. Dads don't understand that sons always want to forgive them. but they just want to hear their dad admit what they did wrong. So this may be a great moment for a few dads to have a great moment of healing in this private father-son experience. And then the fifth special kind of heart-to-heart moment is the father and son commitment ceremony at the end of the weekend. Remember, after the private father-son time, you come back, you go and you pack and get ready, and then come back for a father-son ceremony that your leader who's invited you will take you through. And I'm not going to take you through the whole ceremony, but I do want to make you comfortable with your two moments in the ceremony. And the two things you'll be asked to do is, first, publicly bless your son in front of the other fathers and sons who are there. So you'll gather up for this ceremony. You'll be sitting in a circle of chairs. In that moment, what you're going to do is you're going to stand up with your son, and here's how this is going to work. You're going to stand up and give him the same blessing that God the Father gave His Son Jesus when He was on earth. You know, if you read through the Gospels, you'll find 6 times the Father speaks from heaven to the Son publicly, where everybody hears the voice. And in each of those moments, the Father says the same thing. So this must be super important. But He tells Jesus as a son. He says, "This is my beloved Son." In other words, I love Him. Saying it publicly. "In whom I am well pleased." I'm proud of Him. And then the Father says, listen to Him because He's really good at what He does. And that's kind of the essence of that last phrase, listen to Him. So what you're going to do is give that same blessing. Every son needs this blessing, by the way. But you're going to stand up, and in this moment, here's what you're going to do. You're going to stand up in front of the circle of fathers and sons. You're going to put your hands on your son's shoulders and look him right in the eye. Just at this moment, you and him, but before this public audience. And you're going to say to your son, "Peter, I love you. I really love you. And I am so proud of you. And here's what I admire in you." And then you're already ready because you've had this prep time. You have 2 or 3 things that in this moment you're going to say, "I admire in you this." You might explain a little bit why. "I admire in you this characteristic. I admire in you this sensitivity. I admire in you this heart for God. How you care for one another, how kind you are, how responsible you are." You're going to just brag on him, but not to the group, to him. He's going to hear your heart saying what you really noticed in him and admiring him. And then when you finish, you're going to have a seat. That's the public blessing. And all the dads will do that together. Then there'll be some other things that'll take place, and then towards the end, the second thing you'll do is take a dad pledge. The dad pledge, your leader will ask all of you to stand up with your sons, and again, you will face your son, put your hands on his shoulder, and then kind of like in a wedding, the leader is going to lead you through this dad pledge, and you will speak it into your son's face to face. And the dad pledge is there, right there in your outline. Here's the way it basically goes. I won't necessarily go through the whole thing line by line, but basically you'll start out. Now imagine you're looking at your son. Think of whoever your son is in the moment. You're looking into his face, and the leader will say to you, repeat after me, "Son, I pledge to you today." And you'll say, "Son, I pledge to you today, with God's help, to be the dad I need to be for you. For you." Now again, we're doing it in a sterile moment here, but there, it's going to be powerful. And then I'll just go ahead and read the rest. And he'll continue to lead you through this. He'll say, "As you know, I will fail you at times. Please forgive me when I do. But with God's help, I intend to love you, share my life with you, make special memories with you, and most of all, I intend to lead you to the authentic manhood, a manhood modeled after Jesus Christ. May God make this so. Amen." Then after you do this dad pledge, you'll turn and face your leader, and your leader will then lead the sons in a pledge to authentic manhood. We won't go through that, but they'll take a pledge as well. And then when that's done, the weekend leader will issue some kind of final charges because now you're at the very end point, issue some final charges, and then the weekend is going to be over. But when it's over, by the time you've taken this pledge and your son has taken a pledge and you've blessed him and he's prayed over you, which he'll do in this ceremony, by the time you leave, you're going to leave driving home having had 5 special heart-to-heart father-son moments in this weekend together. This is exciting stuff, guys. And it's a one-of-a-kind weekend that I don't know is anywhere out there. But you're going to get to experience it this weekend. Okay, let's finish up and let's conclude. Notice the last point on your outline. How do you get ready for this weekend? And I'm just going to walk through the 4 answers of how you get ready for this weekend. First, begin now to pray for yourself, your son, and your weekend experience together. Ask God to use this unique manhood experience to bond you deeply together and make the pursuit of godly manhood clear and compelling. Now, hopefully I will have made a definition of manhood clear and compelling, but you're going to leave and go back with that definition, and now you can begin to keep unwrapping that in your son's life for the rest of his life as you and he pursue this manhood. So I would encourage you, you've got a few days before the weekend, that you begin to pray now that God will give you a unique moment with your son. Not just around the fun, not just around the vision that'll be cast, but around your connection heart to heart with your son. Secondly, you can get ready by familiarizing yourself with the Journey to Manhood manual that you have. And I want you to take special note this week of the Smart Dad fold-out. In other words, go through it in detail and get comfortable with it, the plan that it shows, and then read through all the resources for building strong sons that's in your manual, because the more you get comfortable with that fold-out and those resources and the outlines, the more the weekend will be such that it'll just feel real comfortable to you. You also want to maybe review your notes from this session that we're just now finishing up. Okay, third, be prepared and ready to share something special on Friday night that you love about your son at the father-son introductions. Guys, please do this. Do not shoot from the hip on Friday night. You've got a whole week to think about it, but think about one thing that you could say, and what I really love about Austin is this, and share it with him. Start building him up from the very beginning. And you also want to think about 2 or 3 things that you admire in your son that are very specific that you can use when on Sunday morning you have the father-son commitment ceremony and he has stood up, you put your hands on his shoulder, and you're going to bless him with those 2 or 3 things that you admire in him. Again, be prepared to do that. And then finally, the last thing as we finish up, it's this. Expect an inspiring and fun-filled weekend. Because guys, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be great, and hopefully one of the great memory makers for you and your son.